Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our last major session here before we close. This is our live Q&A. I've got Cameron Guff, our content GM, and Rohan Chandler, who is our author management director online. We also have Andrew and Gabby, who are waiting in the wings and eager to support us if we need them. We have been watching your questions come through and working hard over the course of the day to get a sense of the different questions. We've combined a couple of them together that seem themed around the same thing. And between the three of us, we're going to answer as many of those as we possibly can. And then for those of you who are asking new questions, we'll do our best to get through those questions that are in the list. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all of the questions that you're asking. We'll take, I guess I'm up first in our list. And the question that was asked is, Dear James and Louise, tell me please, what do you think the Envato market will look like after the world hysteria with coronavirus and the global health crisis end? Will everything work as before, or will some new model be required? It's a brilliant question. Thank you very much. I mean, the reality is it's hard to know. I think a lot of things are going to be different. There's a lot of change that's just part of this. We're all really navigating the unknown. You know, the way we work, travel, socialize, it all could be different. New businesses will emerge and old businesses will adapt. I think I read something somewhere recently where during the last the financial crisis of 2008 is what led to a few companies coming, like I think it was Twitter or a couple of other major players in the world that we have now came out of the Great Recession. So here we are again at that point in time where a world impacting situation is going to drive some change, but change is good. Change is good, really, especially for our marketplace, because the types of assets that you create, that authors create, are the things that reflect how the world is changing and people wanting to communicate that change. So change drives demand, and we need to stay focused on anticipating what those demands are going to be, what those trends are going to be, and what things might be needed by customers at each of the stages that Cam highlighted in his talk, particularly lockdown stage, when economies start to open up again, and then how the economic recovery goes over the next couple of years. Thanks for the question. Another question. I love that all these questions are going to Louise. Louise is amazing, by the way. Rohan, this one's for you. For those of you who may not know, Louise is socially distancing herself about 1.5 meters away from Rohan, so she's there.
Louise is the engine of keeping this show going and coordinated. She's doing an amazing job in the background.
Absolutely. So, dear Louise, when will the mass identification of Envato authors take place?
Great question. And as authors know, we've introduced a process last month asking to verify the identity of authors, which is something that authors have been asking us to do for many, many years. And it was really great to see the support that we got from the author community as we brought it in a month ago. As a digital marketplace, trust is really important for the marketplace, and it's an important step for us to take for authors working on Envato. At this stage, we've started a small process requiring new authors who submit their first item to Audio Jungle, and making sure that we really can build a process that works for authors, is easy to complete, and doesn't create too many troubles. We work with a lot of authors in a lot of countries and want to make sure we have a nice, easy process that works well for authors before we take it any further. Our intention is to have a verification process for every new and existing author, and it's going to take us some time before we get there. But first, some work to do on making that process really easy before we then take it further than that.
Awesome. Thanks, Rohan. Well, this was a question that came up during our chat with Theme Fusion about nulled themes, or the fact that there are a lot of items stolen and sold on pirate sites. Cam, as the content GM, do you have any thoughts on what Envato is doing about this?
Yeah, thanks for that. So there are a few questions around this. And firstly, I just want to acknowledge that we know it's extremely hard to see your hard-earned work going for free on pirate sites. So we're very acutely aware of that. We've continuously worked on this as something to try and solve over the years. It's a very, very hard problem, as you can imagine. Firstly, we do see a trend where customers do want to do the right thing. They do want to license things properly. We see the kind of questions that we get through our support channels around customers being quite diligent to make sure that they are getting the right license, and we get a lot of feedback around changes that customers would love to see to the licensing and so on. So that's a good sign that generally customers do want to be good. I think where it gets very difficult is where some customers don't care. They do want to just get free content, and I suspect with those sorts of customers, we're probably never going to get any revenue from them. So it's very frustrating, but I wouldn't see that as revenue loss necessarily. But probably more concerning are the customers that do want to do the right thing, but they get tricked by some of these pirate sites. So they go to these sites and think that they're getting genuine licensed content, and they're not. So those are the ones that we're particularly eager to put a stop to. Internally, we've actually just changed how we do this. So we've got a cross-functional team in the organisation that is focused on this problem. We could never chase every single site out there. So what we want to do is make sure that we put our resources to the best use possible. And we're focused on the things that are tricking customers and likely to take revenue away from us, and not, obviously, in the process, not respecting authors and their content. So that's kind of the update we've got. We obviously don't share exactly how we do that because that would be counterproductive. But we do have people working on this problem.
Great, thanks, Cam. So turning to you now, Rohan, I've got a question here with regards to the review process. So a lot of feedback we get at Envato, especially as we do these events, is I just wish Envato would give me more information about my hard rejected items so I can learn and get better and provide the kind of items that you want. So can you speak to that? Like, how can we help authors get better information about their items when they're rejected?
No, absolutely, and I think what's worth and I think, definitely recognise that getting your item rejected is not a great experience as an author, and quite painful for all the work that goes into that point. I think for authors, it's important to know that Envato is a big operation. We get a lot of items. All of that ends up getting reviewed, and we would love to be more detailed on the rejection reasons and on the items and the feedback that we give to authors. But the reality is it simply isn't feasible to deal with every item and provide detailed feedback on each item. We do have guides on the support sites where there is more detailed guides on what gets through review and how authors can build content that gets on the site and sells. The forum can be a very helpful resource as well in terms of getting feedback on certain items. For themes, we're looking into an approach where we can review items in an early design stage before authors invest too much time. And we may look to this for other types. I think we're also doing some work about how can we make it easier for authors to understand what does get on the site and what will be successful. So we know we would love to provide more detail. We get a lot of items It's just really not feasible to provide detailed feedback on all of them. But we're looking to do some things to make it easier for authors to know where that bar is, and there are resources out there with the forum that can also help.
Thank you very much, Rohan. Cam, we're seeing a lot of questions come up as well. A couple here that have been highly voted around price, and the fact that to authors it seems like prices are really low. Do you maybe want to talk a little bit to that, like why prices are the way they are? Is it harming us? And should we be worried about it?
Sure. So I did see a few of these come through during the day. I assume it's around market pricing and some of particularly the lower prices that are coming through. Firstly, author-driven pricing is a thing. So we've got some clear policies and guidelines around that. We are guided by legally what we can and can't do. And that's embedded into those terms. So if you haven't read those, I'd encourage you to read them. There's probably two key principles. One is that authors set the price, and the second one is that that's not influenced by or dictated to by either Envato or other authors. So we can't have authors talking to other authors and trying to work out what pricing should be. And that's really important. It's really important legally. So that kind of restricts how much we can do around pricing. The second thing I'd say is we are continually trying to optimize the outcome for authors and Envato. So you'll see we're quite often running experiments to see how we should arrange the tiles and organize different tiles of on the category pages and so on within market. And all of that is focused on getting the best outcome for, ultimately it's for customers in terms of getting them to actually buy. But what we're trying to optimize is the revenue outcome and the earning outcome for authors. So we'll continue to do those experiments. I know that causes a lot of angst amongst authors and so on, but just know that behind the scenes, what we're trying to do is get the best outcome for authors and us.
Great, thank you. All right, Rohan, this one's for you, and it's related to a couple questions that are coming through around customer ratings. So one of the things, a couple different things that go on here in the space. A lot of times there's customers who leave bad reviews or different kinds of reviews, or go through a support process and then still leave a bad review and rating that's low. So just a lot of questions around that, and are we doing anything to fix that?
No, great question. I've seen a couple of them come through, and reviews are an important part of the marketplace, both for authors and for customers. The support desk deals with a lot of authors who have issues in this sort of activity. And we see a whole spectrum of activity in the review system. So my suggestion, advice is for any author who find themselves in a situation like this, create the support ticket, contact us through the desk, and the team will look into the situation.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question is for me. Hey, cool. Can I, not asking Louise, so that's different. Can I upload mobile app UI to Theme Forest's new XD category, or should I wait for Graphic River category? You could do it on both. We would recommend putting it onto Graphic River because we want more of this item type on Graphic River, and it will likely do better on Graphic River. But yeah, I guess maybe one other thing you could do is to experiment a little bit. So, try putting it on one or the other, so long as you're not duplicating the item, and see what happens. Yeah, don't wait for launches if your item is not that category specific, like XD, for example, either. Cool. That's it. Next up is for Rohan. Question is, will Envato Elements be open to all authors, or is it only for the chosen ones?
Great question, and I'm sure it seems like that at the time. I think it's pretty clear, certainly from me, from the chat I had with Collis, that he's tasking me to make it easier for authors to join Elements. So I think there's a couple of points to make. One is, at the moment, we work on an application basis. Any author is welcome to apply, whether they're on market or otherwise, and the application can be found through the site. For each application, there's a number of reviews that we go through for each author. Usually includes the items that are already in the market that we can see, or links often provided by the author, and we look at the portfolio and items presented, as well as the customer demands and the preferences that are there. Another part of the review is also looking at each author's historical behaviour on Envato, particularly around the compliance history in terms of our terms and conditions and policies of working with Envato, particularly around item security report, intellectual property, those sorts of things. And the authors who are invited, typically have very high quality, high commercial portfolios, and impeccable record of working within Envato. So we know the kind of current process is quite confusing. We're looking at ways to make the process much simpler and much easier. We've certainly done some things to speed it up, but there's more to do for the team to just make it easier and more transparent for everything. And so, we're definitely working hard to do that and make it an easier, simpler process to join.
Thanks, Ron. Cam, the number one question right now in the Q&A section is all about whether we are going to be introducing monthly or yearly subscription-based sales for Envato Market, mainly Code Canyon and Theme Forest authors. I want to speak a little bit to this idea. There's a couple other questions floating down the list as well. Oh, you're muted there.
Mute.
I was just thinking I must remember to unmute, and then I forgot. Apologies. And I saw this coming up, and a few other questions which I think we're getting to the same point. So there's a definite trend in many different parts of the online world to subscriptions. People prefer to sort of see a regular drip feeding of costs rather than a one-off upfront fee. So I'd be honest and say we don't currently have a plan on this. It is something that we've considered in the past, but we've always seen sort of higher priority earning opportunities for authors to pursue first. But I think out of today, it's certainly got enough support there that we'll reopen this as something to look at. I think the most suited, I assume, would be Theme Forest and Code Canyon, and I think it would probably look like exploring. Should we allow a customer to subscribe to a code base or subscribe to a theme, and that would include ongoing updates and support or something like that, as long as they stayed subscribed. So thank you for putting that forward again. We'll certainly take that back internally.
Thanks, Cam. All right, next question. This one's for me. James, another question from me. Not so long ago, Envato announced that instead of packages for elite authors, authors will receive cash rewards. Is it possible to somehow leave a choice for the authors to get a package or choose a cash reward? For me personally, a parcel from Envato is priceless. And if they offered me several $1,000s or a parcel, I would have chosen the parcel from Envato without hesitation. That is so lovely. I mean, I know lots of people love getting that kind of stuff. Who doesn't love getting mail, right? Especially in today's day and age when everything is so digital and we just don't have that same sense of there's a higher level of care, it feels like, right, when you have that. But as over the years, we've been watching steadily as things like customs taxes go up and up and up. So you can imagine, not only would you get the package, but you'd also get a bill with the package for a percentage of what it was worth. And as some of those packages were worth quite a lot, the bill that you would have to pay. So that in a way, it was like penalizing authors to get something that they'd earned, and we didn't really feel right about that. A lot of people were rejecting it, and so we also have this issue where packages would go out from our distribution center, and they'd be sent out to authors, and we wouldn't hear from the package again for a month, 2 months, and in the meantime, you have an author sitting around going, well, I thought this package was coming, where is it? Only to find out it's stuck somewhere in the process, or it got returned to our distribution warehouse. So there's a lot of those types of hiccups that are expensive hiccups for us to manage. It's complicated. If you think dealing with your own postal service is challenging, imagine dealing with 196 postal services or 190 postal services for all the countries that we ship to. So it was just getting to be really high overhead. Cash is something that, while I agree it's not quite as like inspirational maybe as a gift, what it does is it helps us to actually get rewards to 100% of authors. So our fail rate on those is next to nothing. And that's, to me, like, I'd much rather you get something than be anticipating something and not get it at all, and have it get lost in shipping somewhere. So that's not saying that we don't want to have swag out there. We don't want to do gifts. I think we really do. We want to do it in a way that's more effective and really more efficient for us. And so we're still looking at what that can look like and how we can do that in the future. But for now, it will be cash. I think one of the things I look at, as we had made that decision, we didn't know COVID-19 was coming, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's probably a good thing for right now for it to be cash. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that. Thanks all. Next one up here is for you, Cam, another finance related question. When will it be possible to use Swift to receive the income from Elements, to receive the payments both from VideoHive and Elements via one system like Swift would be great.
Yeah, so I'm off mute, which is good. So I must confess I had to ask our finance team this question. So the feedback was we don't currently have this capability. What they advise is you can set up a Payoneer account and get a wire transfer from that. And they said that would actually be a cheaper pathway in terms of transaction fees. But the question has prompted the team to promise to sort of revisit whether this is worth doing.
Great. Will Code Canyon join items on Elements? Well, yeah, there are already Code Canyon items. Some categories are there. I'm sure if there's demand for other categories, we'll definitely explore that. But yeah, there are items there now. Next one's for me. I think the next couple are for me, Rohan, and then there's one for you. So the next question is the GeoTrend 2019 Content Challenge over yet? The answer is yes. That ended back in November. And I think payouts have also gone out for that. But we have another one that's on right now called Rep 2020, which is open to Elements authors that you can participate in. And as we said earlier, we're doing these category content challenges. It'll be across both Market and Elements, which we're kicking off in the very near future. Another one for me. Is there any plan to add item exclusivity option rather than entire portfolio exclusivity? Great question. I think I know where this is coming from. and where an author is wanting to do this. But one of the big challenges we have is that our entire financial payout system is built around paying out the author at the author level. And because of that, it's really technically hard for us to do that. And I think if you weigh that up as a priority among some of the other things we could do, it's probably not something that would hit the top of the list. Especially as you consider the trickle-on implications of that. So, just imagine, the tax stuff that you'd have to think through and all the rest of the financial pieces that would need to happen around calculating, different rates on a per item level as opposed to just a per author level. So for the foreseeable future, this is not something that I think is going to be on the roadmap. Rohan. Few questions coming through about the Audio Jungle review queues. Yes, there are a number of these, especially because they seem to be a little bit longer than maybe they normally are or what authors are accustomed to. 13 days, I think I saw somewhere at the moment. So just wanted to check in with you on what's going there.
No, absolutely, and I've got the note direct from our audio specialist. So thanks for helping out. Apparently the queues are usually up around this time, and so what we're seeing now isn't out of the ordinary from the seasonal pattern. And I know that we have seen volume pick up over the last couple of weeks for sure. So I just reiterate that it's definitely within the normal range at this time. We're not seeing something sort of highly unusual, and expect them to drop towards summer.
Great. One more here for me. Are there any plans to add DaVinci Resolve video templates to VideoHive? A competing marketplace is already monetizing on this growing category. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're always looking at new categories that we can add. Like as I mentioned in the roadmap talk, we've got Flutter and template kits and rasterized illustrations that we're kicking off in the very near term. But there are definitely more categories that we want, and we love it when authors can raise up new item types or new categories like this to us, because it helps us to get onto those trends quickly and do our own analysis and have a think and then work the systems around it. So one of the things I often say in these types of sessions is Envato is a lot like a cruise ship. So if you think about like our software platforms and how software is, you've got speedboats, which probably Elements is the closest thing we've got to a speedboat right about now. And then you've got Market, which is 10 years old, and it's more like a cruise ship. Turn a speedboat's really quick. To have it go in a specific direction, it's a lot quicker and easier. But for a cruise ship, something that's really big like that, it takes a lot longer because there's a lot more moving parts. So anytime we get categories like this, it's really good for us because the more lead time we have, the better prepared we can be to launch it at a point when it makes sense. So, looking at the time, that's all the time we have for now. I just do want to say, Kęstutis, I see your question here, and I know that you are always excited to ask these kinds of questions. And so I just want to let you know in particular that your question here is about raising money, and I know you've been trying to campaign for it all day today. But there's no plans at the moment to work in anything like that. It's not really a business or an area we want to get involved in. That's not stopping you as a business from going out and seeking funding, external funding from wherever it makes sense for you to get it from. And if you need me to step in and be part of that crowdfunding, I'd be happy to invest in what you've got going on. All right, that is it for us today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Cam. Thank you to Sunny and Andrew and Gabby and Collis for being involved and around. We're going to flip over right now to our closing comments, and we will go from there. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.